let's take an early look at Colorado versus Oklahoma State and talk about the way that Colorado could make the Big 12 championship game and keep their college football playoff hopes alive. What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button. We've just gone over 118,000 subscribers, and it would be great to have you join the community here, as kinfolk are the community. And if you're subscribed, you're much more likely to get a response from me in the comments below, if that's indeed what you're looking for. There are lots of people that watch this show that don't comment at all, and I appreciate you too. There are also people that watch this thing not on their phones and on their television, and that's always been just wild to me that, well, I'm old, so we didn't watch no YouTube on the TV, and I get that that's regular for some of y'all, but it's not regular for me because, well, I live in the future as far as 17-year-old me is concerned, and that was 20 years ago. Talking about 20 years ago. 20 years ago, this game is a Big 12 game. And then some things happen, right? The Pac-12 expands. The Pac-12 implodes. The college football playoff is created. And we get to a spot now where going into this season, a team we thought was a top 25 team, a team who looks like they lied to your face in Kansas, lies to your face because their record says that that's a losing team, has knocked off 3 ranked opponents and has become the first team with a losing record to beat 3 consecutive ranked opponents in the history of FBS, which is a great way to look at how topsy-turvy and wild this 2024 season is. One of the cool comebacks in this year is who's at the top of the Big 12. Not just Colorado, but BYU and Arizona State and Iowa State. All there fighting for a chance to play in the Big 12 championship next week. Colorado being there, I'm sure many Colorado fans thought that this was going to happen. Those folks are also delusional, but, you know, that's what it is. I love that Colorado has an opportunity to still win 10 games, right? They got to win the next 2. I also love that Colorado goes from 4-8 to being a ranked team in the college football playoff era for just the second time and the first time with Prime. For those of y'all that haven't really got this one locked in yet, when I say that Colorado has been ranked inside the top 25 in the college football playoff for just the second time, it's not an AP ranking, guys. You know, like I know, I ranked Colorado before anybody else did last year. Please understand, I know the difference. College football playoff rankings don't come out until late October, early November. And obviously, Colorado was not ranked last year. So it is the first time in the Prime era that they have been ranked in the college football playoff. This week, that team needs to beat Oklahoma State. That's the landscape. You beat Oklahoma State, then these other things we're going to talk through have the opportunity to happen for Colorado to get into the Big 12 championship. The fact of the matter is, Oklahoma State, like Kansas, is one of those teams that we thought was going to be good that just ain't. And really, really terrible. Mike Gundy might have done his worst coaching job to date with this team. Because you look at what they returned from last year and what we all thought they were going to be. This is an abject failure. There's no way to get around that. Alan Bowman has not been very good. He's been pulled and put back in. He's thrown 16 TDs, just 12 interceptions. But Ollie Gordon has been just terrible compared to what his Doak Walker award-winning year was last year. That man has still not rushed for 1,000 yards. I felt like that man rushed for 1,000 yards in 4 games last year. Ashton Genty, levels of just stupid good. This year, he's averaging, by his standards, a low total of 4.7 yards per carry. He's just got 870 yards on the ground. And they haven't been particularly great anywhere else. Like Brendan Presley's still pretty damn good. He's got a gaudy 81 catches for 722 yards. So about 8.9 yards per catch. While we're also looking at Deshaun Stribling, who's got 50 catches for 882 yards, right? Nobody's got double-digit touchdowns, but that's not a big deal. Those two dudes have 13 receiving touchdowns between them. And you take a look at Alan Bowman, you take a look at what you've seen from Malachi Smith and what you've seen from Garrett Rango. It's not a good football team. And the record reflects that. They could go winless in conference play. And that, I think, would be enough for people to really start asking, is Mike Gundy still the guy to be head coach at Oklahoma State? I think that he's going to be there in 2025. I also think that no program has been more synonymous with its head coach than Mike Gundy and Oklahoma State. And I include Nick Saban in that comparison, and I include Bob Stoops in that comparison. I conclude Kurt Ferentz at Iowa might be the only other coach that is so synonymous with one program. And I would even go as far as to say that Mike Gundy's got one better than Kirk Ferentz, as he played quarterback at Oklahoma State. And one of his first jobs out of being a football player was a football coach at Oklahoma State. And he got back to Stillwater just as soon as he possibly could and then never left. So this program is very much made in his image, and they've been doing a lot of winning in his time. Just this year has been especially abysmal. And now you know that you're going to face a Colorado team that, if nothing else, is explosive. They're going to score. Can you outscore them is going to be the question, because we've seen that Colorado can have an outstanding run defense if you're Utah, or they can get ran all over like Devin Neal when he went for over 200 yards on the ground against them when that offensive line was just brutally pushing away and knocking off the ball. That otherwise good Colorado front seven. What Colorado obviously has going for it is Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter. I thought the return of Michael Welch was going to do something for them, but it didn't do as much as I thought it was going to do. Maybe it's just Isaiah Gustav is your guy, right? Dallin Hayden might get a few more carries. But Shedeur is one of the 5 most prolific quarterbacks in FBS and one of the 4 most prolific quarterbacks in Power 4. Only one other Power 4 quarterback has thrown more touchdown passes this season than him, and it's Cam Ward. And there are many of y'all that want to give Cam Ward the Heisman, right? Even Shedeur knows he's not winning the Heisman Trophy this year. Travis Hunter is. Should Shedeur be a finalist? Sure. I'm up for anybody being a finalist. I mean, Quinshawn Judkins should have been a finalist in 2022 as a true freshman, what numbers he put up, but he wasn't, right? I think the Heisman voters, for the most part, don't always know what they're doing. But Shedeur has completed 73% of his passes. He has thrown for nearly 3,500 yards, probably going to get close to 4,000 if he gets to play the next 2 games. We'll see. 30 TDs to just 7 picks. And then, of course, Travis Hunter becomes the first player ever to have 1,000 yards receiving and at least 10 receiving touchdowns and multiple interceptions in the same season. The man is a legend. 82 catches this guy has made. He leads the team in catches and receiving yards and receiving touchdowns, and he goes both ways. And if you're going to test him, you better hope you can win. He gave up his first receiving touchdown all season against Utah last week. And I think a lot of folks, myself included, were kind of upset that they lost this game to Kansas, because we would like to see Colorado have an opportunity to play in the Big 12 championship and make the college football playoff. I realize that if you're playing games, you don't give a damn about none of that. You don't care nothing about none of that, and I get that. But the strength of that offense is built around Shedeur and Travis, and then you got Will Shepherd, who is coming on strong. You got LaJohntay Wester, who's coming on strong. You got Jimmy Horn, who has been a force, and Draylon Miller, who's continuing to show up. If they can stop Alan Bowman from distributing the football, and they can stop Ollie Gordon from running the football, Colorado ought to win this one going away. And we'll get to that a little bit later on when I do the preview episode. But I wanted to get out in front and talk a little bit about what I expect from these offenses and these defenses as they're getting ready to face each other on Friday at, I guess that would be 11 a.m. Eastern time, which is going to be kind of interesting and or cool, depending on how you feel about early kickoffs. I love early kickoffs, but I'm also that type. So how does a Colorado get into the Big 12 championship from here is a really important question to ask. But I do want to just sort of recap and set up what this is. So from Saturday, we saw the ACC have its runner-up and its third-place teams in contention for the college football playoff, right? So SMU into the ACC championship game. I think that's the only way that they're going to get in is if they win it. I don't know that this committee is going to respect an SMU that catches an L in the ACC title game no matter what they've done so far, because that BYU loss no longer looks as good, with BYU taking a second loss to Arizona State last week, which we'll talk about, right? So SMU, Miami, Clemson, all in there. Georgia, they've secured a bid to the conference championship in the SEC. They're probably going to make the college football playoff regardless, although you could make an argument either way there, right? Notre Dame, they're probably in with a win against USC this weekend and would likely be one of those teams that gets to host a college football playoff game in the first round. Then Tennessee went from really bad to really good, basically because what other people were able to do is they stomped the mud hole in UTEP and walked it dry. They watched Oklahoma upset Alabama. They watched Auburn upset A&M. I mean, it watched Florida upset Ole Miss. It could not have gone better for Tennessee to have a shot at this thing. But, I think they're going to get into the college football playoff on merit as one of the 12 best teams, along with teams like Indiana or Penn State, who are right there on the bubble. Indiana, again, wild year, right? Their first 10-win year could be their first 11-win year. Yeah, they got shellacked by Ohio State, but it's proven to be one of the 12 best teams in the sport. And it would be fun to watch Indiana have to go to Notre Dame, for instance, to play in that first round game. So now we get to Colorado, who had the loss to Kansas as Arizona State beat BYU. And now we got a tie atop. We got a 4-way tie for first place, and only 2 teams get to play in this thing. So here's some scenarios, right? There are like 296 different permutations of what could happen. That's wild, but probably going to be starting with, hey, let's start with the simplest solution, and then we'll work out. So what I'm going to do is just talk about this from the Colorado standpoint rather than talk about all the teams that are involved, because this is a game of Colorado versus Oklahoma State, and I think many people care about what Prime's team has to do to get into the playoff, and that would mean playing in the Big 12 championship and winning it. So how do you get into the Big 12 championship? Well, first you beat Oklahoma State. It's real hard to make that game if you don't, so start with that. But if Colorado, Iowa State, Arizona State, and BYU each are 7-2, the Big 12 championship game is going to go between Arizona State and Iowa State. That's how it's going to sit. So if you're Arizona State and you're Iowa State, do what you need to do this weekend. Win. The only three-team tiebreaker that can help Colorado is kind of wild. Like, check this out. If BYU loses, right? We're looking at this way differently. Wins. If they beat Arizona State, we're looking at this way differently. It's one of the things that I wrote down on the side. But the only tiebreaker that helps them is Texas Tech needs to beat West Virginia. Baylor needs to beat Kansas. Cincinnati needs to beat Texas Christian. And Colorado would have to really dig deep for something else to happen. If West Virginia defeats Texas Tech, it feels like we could end up with Arizona State and Iowa State, which would also be basically what it is. Colorado needs to beat Oklahoma State on Friday. We know that. And the other most likely outcome is that Arizona State, BYU, and Iowa State lose 2 of those 3. One of those. So Iowa State, BYU. So you need Arizona State, BYU, or Iowa State to lose 2 of the 3. So you're going to root for the teams that are playing against Arizona State, BYU, and Iowa State. And the second one that I think is also worth talking about, Houston would have to beat BYU, and Texas Tech would need to beat West Virginia. I think that one's actually the one that is most likely to be on the table for Colorado, because Houston has shown itself capable of dragging good teams into the deep water, and BYU has been playing Russian roulette with its not Russian roulette, but roulette with its chances of making the Big 12 championship game all of a sudden. And then Texas Tech is a good football team, and West Virginia's been down. And hand the ball to Taj Brooks, play great defense. You have a shot here. I, for one, am going to be watching every bit of that Friday game, and I hope to have an instant reaction here on it, but we'll talk more about it. But I did want to talk about this just a little bit, and I hope it wasn't too confusing. But if it was, let me know in the comments below. And if you're subscribed, much more likely to get a response from me.